The nanny's voice cut through the empty daycare, sharp and frustrated. "I'm done. You hear me? I'm done." She stormed out, phone already to her ear. Leo Vance, janitor and single father, froze mid-step, mop in hand. Through the glass he saw them, two 7-year-old twins, rigid, eyes forward, not blinking, not reacting. "You've got 10 nannies in 3 months and you just sit there like ghosts. It's creepy, it's wrong." The woman stormed out, phone already to her ear. The twins didn't move, didn't flinch, just sat, silent, waiting. Leo's chest tightened. That stillness, he knew it. He'd lived with it in his own home for 6 months after the accident. He knew it in the hollow, the quiet, the waiting. He knelt, pulled a small scrap of wood from his pocket, carved slowly. No words, no demands, just presence. The girls watched, their eyes flickered, tiny cracks of curiosity. Before we dive in, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far these stories travel. Late evening inside a glass and steel corporate tower in downtown Boston, the kind that stayed lit long after most people went home. The executive daycare sat on the 4th floor, tucked behind security doors and quiet hallways that smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Leo Vance moved methodically across the room, pushing his mop in slow, even lines. He worked nights because it paid a little extra and because it kept his days open for his son. The building was almost empty now. No parents, no assistants rushing in heels, no children laughing, just hums and echoes. The door burst open behind him. A woman in a designer coat stormed out, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp and tight. "I'm done. I'm not doing this again. They just sit there, they don't respond, they don't talk. I'm not trained for this." She didn't look back. The elevator doors swallowed her whole. Leo paused, one hand still gripping the mop handle. Across the room, 2 small girls sat at a low table meant for art projects. Crayons lay scattered, untouched. Paper was blank. They sat side by side, knees barely swinging, backs straight, eyes forward. They didn't flinch. They didn't react. They didn't even look toward the door that had just slammed. No crying, no whispers, no questions, just stillness. The daycare supervisor stood near the entrance, rubbing her forehead like she was trying to push away a headache. She glanced at Leo, then back at the girls. Her voice dropped, tired and embarrassed. "That's the 3rd nanny this month." Leo leaned his mop against the wall. "They sick?" She shook her head. "No, they're quiet." She hesitated, searching for the right word. "Too quiet." She stepped closer to the table, crouched slightly. "Girls, your mom will be here soon." Her tone was gentle but strained, like she'd said the same sentence 100 times already. Nothing. She straightened and let out a slow breath. "We've tried specialists, therapists." She sighed, rubbing her temple. "They cooperate in sessions, but then nothing." Leo nodded, though she hadn't asked a question. He watched the girls, really watched them. Their hands rested flat on the table, fingers relaxed but unmoving. Their eyes weren't glassy or defiant. They were alert, present, listening, waiting. The supervisor glanced at her watch. "I'll be in my office. If their mother comes early, let me know." She left, heels clicking down the hallway until the sound disappeared. The room felt larger without adult voices filling it. Leo finished wiping down the counters, emptied trash bins, stacked chairs. The girls stayed exactly where they were, as if time passed around them but never touched them. He'd seen silence before. Not this exact silence, but something close enough that it made his chest tighten. He checked the clock on the wall. 8:47 p.m. He was supposed to be done in 15 minutes. Leo pushed his cart toward the door, then stopped. He looked back. The girls hadn't moved. He told himself it wasn't his business. He was a janitor, not staff. He'd already been warned once about overstepping when he helped a kid find a lost shoe weeks earlier. He turned the cart another inch. Then one of the girls blinked. Slowly. Deliberately. That did it. Leo rolled the cart back, parked it against the wall, and crouched beside it. He reached into the small side pouch where he kept odds and ends, gloves, screws, a folded photo he never took out anymore, and pulled free a small block of smooth scrap wood he'd picked up from a renovation site weeks earlier. He sat down on the floor, not near them, not close enough to crowd them, just in the room. He leaned back against the cabinet, legs stretched out, the wood resting in his palm. From his pocket, he took out a simple carving knife, the blade worn dull enough to be safe with careful hands. The scrape of metal against wood was soft, rhythmic. He didn't look at them while he worked. He carved slowly, letting the shape find itself. A curve here, a notch there. His hands remembered what to do even when his mind drifted. The girls noticed. The one on the left tilted her head, just a fraction. The other followed a moment later, eyes tracking the movement of his hands. Leo kept carving. No greeting, no explanation, no hello. Minutes passed. The sound of the blade filled the quiet, steady and calm. Leo's shoulders relaxed without him realizing it. He focused on smoothing an edge, rounding a fin. He felt eyes on him and still didn't look up. Eventually, the supervisor passed by the open doorway, glanced in, then paused. She raised an eyebrow at the sight. Janitor on the floor, children still silent. Leo didn't meet her gaze. She hesitated, then kept walking. The girls shifted. One slid her chair back an inch. The legs scraped softly across the floor. Leo's hand didn't stop. Another minute passed. A small sneaker touched the ground. One of the girls slid off her chair and stood, hands clasped in front of her. She didn't approach him. She just stood there, watching the shape emerge. Leo finished smoothing the tail, then placed the knife carefully on the floor beside him. He turned the piece of wood over in his hands, inspecting it. It was a fish. Simple. Nothing fancy, just something recognizable. He set it on the floor between himself and the girls and gently nudged it forward with 2 fingers. The fish slid across the polished tile and came to a stop halfway. He leaned back again, eyes on the ceiling this time, giving them space. The standing girl didn't move at first. Then she stepped forward. One careful step, then another. She crouched, picked up the fish, turned it over in her hands. Her fingers traced the curve of the tail, the small carved eye. Her sister joined her, kneeling close, their heads nearly touching as they examined it together. They didn't smile, but something shifted. Leo felt it without looking. He glanced over. The girls were no longer frozen. They were still quiet, still wordless, but their shoulders weren't locked. Their eyes moved, their hands explored. The standing girl looked up at him for the first time. Their eyes met. Leo didn't rush the moment. He gave a small nod, not a greeting, not a demand, just acknowledgement. The girl held his gaze for a second longer, then placed the fish carefully on the table between them, as if it mattered. Leo returned to his seat against the cabinet. He picked up the knife again, then paused. He didn't carve anything else. He just sat there, and the twins watched. The routine settled quietly, without anyone naming it. Night after night, Leo arrived just after 7, signed in at the security desk, and rode up to the 4th-floor daycare. The twins were always there, sometimes with a nervous new nanny, sometimes with a smiling therapist, sometimes alone. He did his job first, wiped counters, emptied bins, swept crumbs no one else noticed. Only when the last adult voice faded did he do what he'd done the first night, parked his cart, sat on the floor, pulled out a block of wood, and carved. A bird, a turtle, a fish. He never handed them to the girls, never spoke. He just stayed. On the 4th night, he slid a newly carved bird across the floor. A small hand reached out, stopped halfway, fingers hovering inches above the tile. The girl glanced at his face, then away. Leo didn't move. After a long moment, she pulled back, still uncertain. Leo waited. Slowly, deliberately, he nudged the bird another inch closer, not toward her, but between the twins. They exchanged a barely perceptible glance. Fingers twitched under the table, a tiny nod almost invisible. Leo froze, heart tightening. The next night, he tested a small sign he'd used with his son. Hello. Both girls froze, eyes wide. Then one lifted her hands carefully, forming the sign. It was stiff, hesitant, but unmistakable. He returned it gently. Thank you. She mirrored it, more confidently this time. Her sister watched closely, eyes darting between their hands. No voices, no smiles, just connection. From that night, the room changed. The twins didn't speak, but their hands told stories in fragments, quick exchanges, questions they didn't voice, observations about his carvings, even Kai's photo that sometimes peeked from his pocket. Leo answered only what appeared. One evening, as he sanded the edge of a wooden turtle, one girl lifted her hands. Man, Leo nodded. Her fingers clenched, then opened wide, yelling. Her sister added emotion, 2 fingers walking, then a flat hand hitting the floor. Door. Pause. Then a fist closing, pulling away. Car. Gone. The girls froze, eyes fixed on Leo, waiting. He didn't react the way adults often did. He didn't comfort, correct, or ask for more. He rested the turtle on the floor and signed once. Gone. They exhaled almost together. Another night, one girl touched her throat, shook her head. Voice, no. Leo signed slowly. Did it stop, or did you stop using it? She made a small motion, hand slipping like something fading. Gone. Not broken, not taken, just gone. Leo nodded. He never mentioned therapy sessions, doctors, or adults who thought louder voices could fix silence. Some stories matched without words. One night, a piece of tape on his cart loosened. A photo slipped out. A woman laughing, hand on Leo's shoulder. A small boy on the floor holding a toy car. One girl pointed. Who? Leo picked it up and signed, my wife. She waited. Accident. The meaning landed without lectures, before and after. Another sign followed. The boy. Leo's hand stayed steady. My son. One twin touched her ear, pointing to him. He can't hear. They paused. Then one reached out, brushing the photo's corner. Sorry. Leo shook his head gently. It's okay. But he lingered on the picture longer than usual. After that, things shifted. The twins began leaving carvings where he could see them, lining them up carefully. They started waiting for him, not just sitting, but watching the door. Sometimes they brought him small offerings, a crayon, a folded note, a toy with one ear missing. Leo accepted them all, never praising, never asking them to speak. He just showed up. And slowly, without announcement, the silence between them stopped feeling empty. It became shared. The first time Leo brought Kai with him, it wasn't planned. His sitter canceled late, apologetic and rushed, and Leo stared at his phone in the hallway outside the daycare, weighing his options. Missing a shift wasn't something he could afford. Leaving Kai alone wasn't an option at all. Kai stood beside him, backpack slung over one shoulder, watching his father's face. He tapped Leo's arm twice to get his attention and signed, I'm okay, I can sit, I'll be quiet. Leo hesitated, then nodded. Just for a little while, he said out of habit, then caught himself and signed it instead. Kai smiled, already halfway down the hall. Inside the daycare, the twins were at their usual table. When they saw Leo, they straightened slightly. When they saw Kai, they froze. Kai stopped a few feet from them, suddenly unsure. He lifted one hand in a small, careful wave. Hello. The response was instant. Both girls signed back at the same time, quick and bright, hands moving with a confidence Leo had never seen them before. One of them laughed silently, shoulders bouncing, like she couldn't quite stop herself. Kai's eyes widened. He laughed too, soundless, open, unguarded. Leo felt something loosen in his chest. He set up his cart and let the kids do what kids did when adults didn't interfere. They sat on the floor together, knees touching, hands flying. Kai showed them a game he played at school, counting on fingers, then switching numbers too fast on purpose to confuse the other person. One of the twins caught on immediately and beat him at it, grinning like she'd won a prize. They played with the wooden carvings, lining them up, rearranging them into scenes only they understood. A fish swam across the floor. The turtle hid behind a chair leg. The bird took flight with exaggerated arm movements. No voices, no instructions, just connection. Leo worked quietly, watching from the corner of his eye. He hadn't realized how much he'd been holding his breath until now. The daycare supervisor appeared in the doorway, stopped, and stared. She watched the children for a long moment, 3 heads bent together, hands moving in animated conversation, faces alive. She looked at Leo, then back at them, disbelief written plainly across her face. She didn't interrupt. She backed away slowly, already pulling out her phone. By the end of the night, the twins didn't want to leave the floor. Kai packed up reluctantly, signing goodbye like it mattered. The girls signed back with exaggerated seriousness, then burst into silent laughter again. As Leo wheeled his cart out, the supervisor caught up to him in the hall. "Who is that child?" she asked, voice low. "My son," Leo said. She nodded slowly. "Their mother needs to see this." Leo felt a flicker of unease at that, but it was too late to pull back now. The next evening, the twins' mother arrived early. She stood just outside the doorway, arms crossed, posture rigid, clearly braced for disappointment. Then she saw her daughters on the floor with a janitor's son, hands moving rapidly, faces alive in a way she hadn't seen in months. She didn't interrupt. She just watched. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't interrupt what was working. Clara Sterling arrived after 9, heels quiet on the polished floor, coat still buttoned like armor. She'd come straight from a board call that ran long and ugly, voices raised, decisions postponed. She was used to walking into rooms where people adjusted themselves the second they saw her. She was also used to walking into the daycare at night and finding tension, tight smiles, whispered apologies, another report about how hard the girls were trying. She was ready for that. She wasn't ready for what she saw. Her daughters were on the floor, not sitting stiffly, not staring past people. On the floor, knees bent, bodies loose, hands flying. A boy about their age sat between them, laughing silently, shoulders shaking as he exaggerated a sign so dramatically that both girls collapsed against each other, delighted. A man sat a few feet away, back against the cabinet, not directing, not hovering, watching, present but unobtrusive. Clara stopped just inside the doorway. No one noticed her at first. She took in the details automatically, the way she did during site visits and negotiations. The janitor's cart pushed against the wall, the name badge clipped to his shirt, the way the girls leaned in instead of pulling away. Her daughters were relaxed. That alone made her chest tighten. One of the girls noticed her then. She glanced up, froze for half a second, and then signed something rapidly to the others. The boy turned, spotted Clara, and waved, not the careful wave adults taught children, a real one. Hello. The twins signed it back to him, then looked at Clara again. They didn't get up, they didn't retreat, they waited. Clara stepped forward slowly. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice controlled, professional, not unkind, but guarded. The man stood immediately. "Good evening," he said. "I'm Leo." He didn't offer an explanation. He didn't launch into a defense or a pitch. He simply stepped aside, giving her a clear view of the children again. "They've been playing," he added. That was all. Clara looked down at her daughters. Girls. They didn't answer, but they didn't shut down either. One of them lifted her hands and signed to the boy. He nodded and signed back, then scooted aside so Clara could see better. The girls began signing to each other, then to Leo, then back again, a fast, fluid exchange that left Clara struggling to keep up. She understood enough to follow the rhythm. Her daughters were leading. Clara swallowed. "How long has this been happening?" she asked quietly. "A few weeks," Leo said, "at night. And you didn't think to tell anyone?" He hesitated. "I didn't want to interrupt what was working." That answer irritated her. It also rang painfully true. She watched her daughters again, really watched. No flinching when someone moved, no blank stares, just kids being kids in the way they could. A memory surfaced unwanted, a therapist leaning forward, voice exaggerated. "Use your words." A reward chart taped to the fridge, the girls' faces closing off inch by inch. Clara exhaled. "What do you do?" she asked Leo. "I clean," he said simply. She almost laughed. Instead, she nodded. "I mean with them." "I don't do anything," he said. "I let them." That landed harder than she expected. The supervisor hovered nearby, clearly anxious. Clara waved her off without looking. She crouched down in front of her daughters. "Do you like this?" she asked softly. One of the girls reached out, touched Clara's sleeve, then signed. "Safe." Clara's throat tightened. She stood quickly, turning away so the children wouldn't see her face change. She faced Leo again. "I want you to keep coming, not like this, properly, scheduled, paid." Leo nodded cautiously. "I already have a job. I can fix that, or adjust it, however you want." He studied her for a moment, reading the tension behind her authority. "Temporary," he said. She nodded. "Temporary." Neither of them sounded convinced. The children drifted back together on the floor, already absorbed in their quiet world. Clara watched them, something uncoiling inside her that she hadn't known was locked so tight. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she was failing them, and for the first time, she didn't feel like she was in control either. The weeks folded into each other without ceremony. Leo adjusted his shifts, Clara adjusted the schedule. Nothing about it felt official, even when paperwork existed. What mattered happened in the margins, late evenings, quiet rooms, children deciding what came next. The twins kept leading. Some nights they signed only, fast, fluid, confident. Other nights something slipped out by accident, a sound, a half word, a breath shaped into voice. It never lasted long. The moment they realized it, they pulled back, hands lifting automatically, retreating into the language that felt safer. No one reacted. Leo didn't look up sharply. Clara didn't gasp or praise or encourage. The sound was allowed to exist and disappear, like it hadn't carried weight. Because it didn't have to. After the children left with their sitter or Clara's driver, Leo stayed to clean. Clara stayed too, sitting at the small table meant for finger painting, jacket draped over the chair, heels kicked off under it. They talked while Leo wiped surfaces and stacked chairs. At first, it was practical. Scheduling, what worked, what didn't, how tired the girls seemed after long days. Then it drifted. Clara talked about boardrooms that felt colder than any room she'd ever walked into, about being the only woman at the table and never letting anyone see it shake her, about coming home to an apartment that felt too quiet, even when the girls were there. Leo talked about mornings that started too early and nights that never quite ended, about Kai's school, about teachers who tried hard and still missed things, about learning to listen with his eyes. They didn't talk about grief directly. It surfaced sideways, through pauses, through the way Clara sometimes stared at nothing after mentioning the twins' father, through the way Leo went still when someone laughed too loudly in the hall. The attraction built in that quiet space. It wasn't flirtation, it was recognition. Two people tired in the same places for different reasons. Two parents carrying weight they never set down. Sometimes their hands brushed when passing a stack of papers. Sometimes their eyes held a second longer than necessary. Nothing crossed a line. Everything hovered close to it. Then the email came. Clara read it alone in her office, late, screen glowing against the dark. Her fingers tightened around the phone as she reread the subject line. Custody review request. Her ex-husband hadn't used that tone in years. Polite, legal, cold. He wanted to reassess visitation. He'd heard about alternative therapies. He had concerns. He wanted to be involved again. Clara's breath went shallow. That night she arrived at the daycare already braced for loss. The twins sensed it immediately. Their signing slowed, their attention fractured. Leo noticed the shift before Clara said a word. After the session ended and the girls were led away, Clara stayed standing, arms crossed tightly, staring at the empty floor. He contacted me, she said, finally. Leo looked up from wiping the table. Who? Their father. The room felt smaller. He wants to come back, or at least interfere. Leo nodded once. He didn't ask questions. Clara turned to him, eyes sharp now, defensive. This doesn't change anything. What we're doing, it works. He doesn't get to... Leo was quiet a long moment. The thought had been circling his mind since she'd said custody review. He knew how fragile trust was, how easily a new man in their lives could be weaponized. I should step back, he said finally, the words tasting like dust. The words landed harder than he'd intended. Clara stared at him. What? If he's coming back into their lives, Leo said, choosing each word carefully, they don't need another man confusing things. I don't want to... Replace him? Clara snapped. Leo didn't answer. He didn't have to. Her face tightened. You're not replacing anyone. It might look that way, to him, to them. Clara laughed once, sharp and humorless. So you'll disappear? That's your solution? Leo flinched. He hadn't expected that word. I'm trying to protect them, he said. So am I, she shot back. Silence stretched between them, thick and unfamiliar. This wasn't the easy quiet they'd learned to share. This was brittle. The next few sessions felt strained. Leo was still there, still patient, still kind, but something had closed. He sat farther back. He let the girls come to him without offering the small nudges he used to. Clara noticed. The twins noticed. One night, one of the girls signed to Leo, confused. Why sad? Leo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He shook his head. Nothing. But the room felt wrong. Clara watched it slipping through her fingers and felt panic rise, hot and fast. She was losing ground, legally, emotionally, everywhere at once. When she finally confronted Leo again, her voice was quieter. Don't leave, she said. Not formally, not professionally, personally. Leo looked at her, really looked, at the fear she'd been hiding behind competence, at the exhaustion. I don't know how to stay without hurting someone, he said. Clara swallowed. Neither do I. The tension hung there, unresolved, pulsing beneath every interaction, and the children, sensitive as they were, felt it building, something fragile threatening to break. The breaking point came on a Thursday night just after 8, when the building felt too quiet and the lights hummed louder than usual. Clara found the email by accident. She'd stayed late to sign off on invoices, Leo already in the daycare with the twins. On her way out, she passed the open door of the floor supervisor's office. The woman was on the phone, sounding exasperated. Yes, Leo Vance, the janitor. He submitted a shift change request. End of the month. I know. Clara stopped walking. Then she saw Leo's name. Shift adjustment request, effective end of month. Her chest tightened. She read it once, then again. The words didn't change. Step away, reduce hours, transition support. She stood so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. By the time she reached the daycare, the door was open. The twins were inside, sitting close together on the floor, hands still, eyes fixed on Leo. Kai sat near them, knees pulled to his chest, watching his father's face. Leo was explaining something softly, hands moving slower than usual. Clara didn't knock. "What is this?" she demanded, holding up her phone. Leo turned, his face drained of color. The twins stiffened. Kai looked between them, confused. "Clara," Leo said, lowering his hands, "we can talk later." "No," she said, "we're talking now." She didn't raise her voice, but it cut sharper than yelling ever could. "You were going to leave without telling me." "I was going to tell you." "When?" Her laugh was short and disbelieving. "After you disappeared?" The twins' eyes flicked to Clara, then back to Leo. Their hands hovered uncertainly, half lifted, then dropped into their laps. Leo glanced at them, then back at Clara. "I told you why. This is getting complicated." "It was already complicated," Clara snapped. "You don't get to decide what they lose." "That's exactly what I'm trying not to do," he said, his voice tightening. "I don't want to hurt them. And you think leaving won't?" The room felt suddenly too small for all of it. Kai stood up, tapping Leo's arm sharply. "Why are you fighting?" Leo turned to him immediately, softening. He signed carefully. "We're not fighting." Kai frowned. He looked at Clara, then back at Leo. "Feels like fighting." Clara pressed her lips together, forcing herself to breathe. "You didn't even trust me enough to tell me," she said, "after everything." Leo's shoulders sagged. "I didn't trust myself," he admitted. The twins shifted, anxiety rippling through them. One signed quickly to the other, hands tense, movements choppy. The girls stood up abruptly. "Wait," Leo said instinctively, stepping forward. They flinched. That was all it took. They bolted, not screaming, not crying, just sudden motion, small feet pounding against the floor as they ran through the open door and down the hallway. Clara's heart slammed into her throat. "Girls!" Leo was already moving. "Kai, stay here." Kai shook his head violently and followed anyway. They found one twin near the stairwell, crouched behind a vending machine. The other had made it farther, down the stairwell itself, sitting on the steps, arms wrapped tight around her knees. Clara dropped beside her, breathless. "It's okay. I'm here." The girl didn't look up. Her hands were clenched, unmoving. Leo stayed back, giving space, guilt written across his face. Kai stood frozen at the landing, eyes wide, chest rising too fast. For a moment, it felt like they'd lost everything. Then the girl on the steps lifted her head. Her mouth opened. The sound came out rough, unused, barely more than air. "Stop." Everyone froze. Clara's breath caught painfully. Leo felt his knees weaken. The girl swallowed hard, eyes shiny but steady. "Stop," she said again, clearer this time. Her sister peeked around the corner, eyes wide in disbelief. No one spoke. No one moved. The word hung there, fragile and real. The girl exhaled, shaking. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. Clara reached for her slowly, careful not to rush. This time, the girl didn't pull away. Leo watched, heart breaking and mending all at once. Everything had almost shattered, and in the cracks, something unexpected had found its way through. After that night, nothing went back to the way it had been, and somehow that's what made it work. The twins didn't start talking all at once. There was no sudden shift, no triumphant moment where silence broke and stayed broken. Instead, speech slipped in sideways, unannounced. A word here, a sound there, sometimes a whisper that surprised even them. They still signed, often instinctively, but now their hands shared space with their voices. "Fish," one of them said softly one evening, pointing to a carving on the floor. The word came out careful, like she was testing whether it would hurt. Leo nodded and signed it back anyway. Fish. The girl smiled, relieved. Some days they spoke more, other days not at all. No one charted it, no one praised or corrected. The language belonged to them, and they used it when it felt right. Clara's ex-husband showed up once. He stood in the doorway during a session, arms crossed, face tight with something that looked like concern until it wasn't. He watched the girls sign with Leo, watched Kai respond easily, watched Clara sit on the floor instead of standing over them. He asked questions later, legal ones, clinical ones. Then he stopped coming. His emails slowed, his requests softened. Eventually they stopped altogether, not because he was defeated, but because the effort didn't interest him anymore. The girls noticed. They didn't ask about it. Leo noticed something else. Kai began reaching for Clara without thinking, tapping her arm to get her attention, signing jokes meant just for her, sitting close enough that their shoulders touched. One night, after the children had left, Leo stayed behind, hands resting on the cart, eyes unfocused. "I'm scared," he admitted quietly. Clara looked up from her phone. "Of what?" "That I'll let myself be happy," he said, "and something will take it away again." Clara didn't interrupt. "That Kai will get attached," Leo continued, voice rough. "That he'll lose another mother." Clara set the phone down. "I'm scared too," she said, "that if I loosen my grip, everything falls apart." They sat with that between them. No solutions, no reassurances, just truth. "I don't know what this is," Clara said finally. Leo met her gaze. "Me neither." They didn't promise forever. They didn't name the relationship. They agreed on one thing only. No disappearing, no pretending, no decisions made alone. The blending happened in small, uneven steps. A shared dinner that felt awkward and too quiet at first. A school pickup where the twins ran to Leo without checking first, then paused, then kept going. A late-night text that wasn't about logistics. There were missteps, jealousy, moments where grief resurfaced without warning, days when everything felt like too much. But no one ran. The children learned that adults could argue and stay, that tension didn't always mean abandonment, that silence didn't have to mean loss. Slowly, without anyone announcing it, the space between them stopped feeling temporary. It felt chosen. And that was enough. A year later, late afternoon lights stretched long across Harmony Park, soft and golden without trying to be anything more than it was. The children ran ahead along the paved path, backpacks bouncing, shoes scuffing. Kai signed something exaggerated and ridiculous, his hands moving fast, his face overdoing the punchline. One of the twins burst out laughing, sound and all, then covered her mouth like she'd surprised herself. Her sister answered with a mix of sign and words, half-spoken, half-shaped in the air. Leo and Clara followed at an easier pace. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. A year of small, honest choices had settled into something steady. They reached the open space near the trees, where the grass dipped slightly, the city noise distant enough to fade. The children slowed, drawn toward a familiar bench near the path. Leo stopped. "Hey," he said. They turned. Kai came back first, curious. The twins followed, expressions open but alert, like they'd learned to be. Leo knelt down so he was level with them. Clara felt her breath catch, though she hadn't known to expect anything. "I want to ask you something," Leo said, voice steady. He looked at Kai first, signed as he spoke. "You already chose me," he said gently, "a long time ago." Kai nodded, eyes serious. Leo turned to the twins. He didn't rush. He let them see his hands clearly. "I chose your mom," he said, "but that's not the whole question." The girls leaned in. "I want to know if you'll choose me too," Leo continued. "Not because you have to, because you want to." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. Not a ring, 4 wooden carvings, smoothed by time and touch. A fish, a bird, a turtle, another fish, slightly different from the first. He set them on the bench between them. The twins stared. Kai smiled softly. Clara covered her mouth, tears rising uninvited. No one spoke at first. Then one of the twins signed, "Yes." Her sister said it out loud at the same time, quiet but clear. "Yes." Kai signed it too, quick and certain. Leo exhaled, something uncoiling inside him that he hadn't realized was still tight. He stood, turned to Clara, and finally, only now, pulled out the ring. She didn't wait for words. "Yes," she said, laughing through tears. They didn't kiss dramatically, they didn't draw attention. The children immediately resumed their arguments over who got which carving, who had held it first, who remembered which night it had been made. They walked home together as the light faded. Not perfect, not healed in every way, but whole, and choosing each other again. Stories like this live in the quiet moments. If you want more of them, subscribe to Soul Strength Stories and stay with us.